Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, first I want to thank you for your service and your leadership, and through you I want to thank all of the men and women who are currently serving in Afghanistan and who have served in the past. I want to ask you a couple of questions about the bombing in Kunduz, or the attack on the hospital in Kunduz. And I recognize that there is an investigation ongoing, but I want to ask you, per your knowledge, why the Afghanistan National Army called that strike at that location.
So again, that's a question that we're asking during the investigation. I wouldn't want to get out in front of the investigation. I need to learn those facts from the investigation. There's a DoD investigation, a NATO investigation. The Afghans do an investigation. We'll be very thorough, very transparent. As soon as I can get those details, I'll make sure the committee has those.
Is there ever a scenario where it is okay to strike a hospital?
So a hospital is a protected facility. We would not target a hospital. So if I can go back maybe to the first part of your question and maybe get at what you're talking about here. When the Afghans call for fire, that's not an automatic response. So every day the Afghans ask me for close air support, and we just don't go fire someplace. That has to go through a rigorous procedure to put aerial fires on the ground, a U.S. process under the U.S. authorities. And so that's what we got to figure out what happened in that case. But I don't want people to think that just because the Afghans call fire that there's automatic fire anywhere they want it. That's not the case.
And my last question on this is, are you aware of press reports within Afghanistan that that hospital was treating Taliban and non-Taliban combatants alike, which raised the ire of the Afghan National Forces, who had conducted a raid at that hospital days before or weeks before that strike?
I've seen media reports about Taliban treating in the hospital, yes, sir, but that's the only thing.
And that would not be a justification for a strike on the hospital?
No.
Okay. Related question, and one that I think you can speak openly about. Can you talk about the terms of our security agreement with Afghanistan and under which conditions we can use lethal force? I understand there are exceptions for counterterrorism activities, there are exceptions for when U.S. forces are under attack, and there are exceptions for urgent situations. Could you characterize our involvement in Kunduz under those exceptions or others that we may not be familiar with?
So again, I'm not going to talk about Kunduz or what happened in Kunduz. And any time we talk about in detail on authorities or rules of engagement, I would not do that in a public hearing. I'll be glad to discuss that with you in a closed hearing, sir.
This might be my last question. How do you balance the need to ensure that we are adequately supporting the Afghan National Army, not abandoning them, and continuing with the train, assist, and advise operations, and not at the same time creating a prolonged moral hazard where they know that U.S. support will be there year in, year out, and they may not make some of the difficult political decisions, investment decisions in their own armed forces and capabilities, decisions with accountability for their leadership that otherwise might be made?
Sure, that's a great question, and I think we work that very hard every single day. We do, they know, and that's why fighting season 15 was completely different. I said up front, you can't compare it with other fighting seasons. The number of forces we had, the level that we had people at, where we do train and advise and assist made this very different. The ability for us to provide close air support like we have in the past was very different. So there's no doubt in my mind, there's no doubt in the senior military that I deal with on the Afghan side that it is different, and they have to pick up the fight. They have to want this more than we want it. And so I have seen a change in behavior on that. I don't see that as an issue. What I think they're looking at now is how long will our continued support from the international community and the U.S. Be there, and a decision to continue to provide support would make a huge impact in supporting President Ghani, supporting the Afghan people, supporting the Afghan security forces, the impact that would make on the Taliban and the message it sends to them, the message it sends to Pakistan, and the message that it sends to NATO, I think, are pretty huge as well. So decisions here upcoming as we look forward would have an impact on all of those audiences.
Quick question. When will we likely get the results of your investigation of the Kunduz attack?
That's right. I talked yesterday with the investigating officer. He's working it very hard. I should have some preliminary investigation results here in the next, yesterday I was asked it, and I said within about 30 days. I don't have an exact date, but as soon as I can get those, I'll make sure we get that.
Thank you. I yield back.
Committee.